How the Qur'an inspired the birth of modern science. When people speak about modern science, they often describe it as a product of laboratories, equations, and experiments. Rarely do they associate science with revelation. And yet, when we look carefully at history, we find that one of the most powerful inspirations behind the rise of scientific thinking came not from instruments, but from ideas. Ideas found in the Qur'an. Science does not begin with technology. It begins with curiosity. The Qur'an repeatedly calls upon human beings to observe, reflect, and think. Again and again it asks, do they not observe? Do they not reflect? Do they not think? These are not poetic decorations. They are direct invitations to inquiry. By framing thinking as a responsibility, the Qur'an cultivated minds that questioned rather than accepted blindly the very mindset science requires. Inquiry as a religious duty in the Quranic worldview, asking questions is not seen as rebellion. It is seen as a path to understanding. Believers are encouraged to look at the heavens, the earth, the alternation of night and day, and the patterns of life itself. This emphasis transformed curiosity into something noble. Inquiry was not merely allowed, it was valued. For early Muslim scholars, studying nature became a way to fulfill this intellectual responsibility. Evidence over assumption. One of the most striking features of the Qur'an is its insistence on evidence. The Qur'an repeatedly challenges claims that lack proof, asking its audience to bring clear evidence if their assertions are true. This principle had profound implications. It discouraged superstition, undermined unfounded authority, and promoted verification. Truth was not inherited. It was demonstrated. This attitude directly mirrors the scientific demand that claims must be supported by evidence. Critical thinking and accountability. The Qur'an also holds individuals accountable for their reasoning. It criticizes blind imitation, especially when people follow tradition without understanding. This rejection of uncritical conformity created intellectual independence. Scholars were encouraged to think for themselves, to question inherited ideas, and to correct earlier authorities when necessary. This is why Muslim scientists did not simply preserve Greek science, they improved it. Critical thinking was not a threat to faith. It was a responsibility. Nature as an ordered system. In the Quranic perspective, nature is not random or chaotic. It is described as balanced, measured, and governed by patterns. This belief gave scholars confidence that the universe could be understood through systematic study. If nature follows laws, then experimentation can uncover them. This assumption that the universe is intelligible is one of the deepest foundations of modern science. Knowledge as a moral responsibility. The very first word revealed in the Qur'an was read. Knowledge was not treated as a luxury, but as a moral obligation. Learning, teaching, and scholarship were elevated to acts of ethical value. This is why Islamic civilization invested heavily in libraries, hospitals, observatories, and schools. Science was not pursued despite religion. It was pursued because of it. From reflection to method inspired by this worldview, Muslim scholars moved beyond speculation. They tested ideas. Figures like Ibn al-Haytham insisted that theories must be verified through observation and controlled experiment. When evidence contradicted accepted views, evidence took priority. This principle, that truth must submit to testing, lies at the heart of the scientific method. The Qur'an did not provide scientific equations, but it nurtured the intellectual discipline that made scientific methodology possible. The unity of knowledge. Another Quranic principle was the unity of all forms of knowledge. There was no rigid divide between religious and natural sciences. Astronomy helped determine time. Medicine preserved life. Mathematics structured law and architecture. Science was woven into everyday life, ensuring constant refinement and application. From inspiration to transmission, when Europe later encountered Islamic scientific works, it encountered more than information. It encountered a culture shaped by inquiry, evidence, and critical reasoning. European scholars inherited not only texts, but methods and attitudes that became the foundation of modern science. A careful conclusion: the Qur'an is not a science textbook. It does not offer formulas or laboratory instructions. But it inspired the intellectual conditions that allowed modern science to emerge. It emphasized inquiry over passivity, evidence over assumption, and critical thinking over blind imitation. In this sense, the Qur'an did not replace science. It prepared the ground for it. Closing reflection: modern science did not arise in a vacuum. It grew from a culture that valued reason, honored evidence, and encouraged the study of nature. The most influential sources of that culture was the Qur'an, a text that repeatedly urged humanity to read, to observe, to think, and to seek truth with humility.